Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Caroline Heward and I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. I'm also USA Global TV resident therapist and I am a TV presenter on the channel. Our show today is Talking Heads and I'm an expert presenter in today's topic, which is part of the Mind and Body Connection series. Our topic today is Beyond Stigma, Understanding Men's Mental Health Challenges. And I'm very pleased to be able to bring this topic to you today of all days. It is recognised as International Men's Mental Health Challenge Day. And today I went to a conference specifically about looking at this topic, celebrating men's mental health challenges and Men's Mental Health Day. And the things that I'm going to talk about in this show today, I was really pleased, surprised, and I had absolute confirmation from the presenters and the people that spoke about their experiences that I'm very much on target with what the challenges are. So let's begin. It's International Men's Day today, and the current state of mental health, the statistics in depression and anxiety in men. I'd like to start off with some statistics because I feel that looking at the numbers, and I had to research the numbers, but looking at the numbers really gives us a much bigger understanding of this serious epidemic of mental health issues in men. So depression globally, there's over 264 million people that suffer with depression. That's a huge amount, 264 million people. And the large majority, a significant majority, is men that make up that proportion, which then again, I was quite stunned at that figure. In many countries, men are less likely to be diagnosed and they're more likely to suffer in silence. This is not wrong and it's not right. It simply is. And what I'm demonstrating here is that it's not that men shouldn't be suffering or men are suffering. They are suffering and they're suffering in silence. So many people are not aware of their suffering. They're not aware that this is a huge problem. So much underreporting, 3 to 4 times of men are less likely to seek mental health support compared with women. These numbers and these stats are staggering, but I felt that I wanted to set a real practical scene for this conversation tonight. Anxiety disorders. Anxiety affects 275 million people worldwide. The men experiencing anxiety experience anxiety much more differently to women. Their behaviours are different. They'll probably be more irritable and they may have or display avoidance behaviours. So this is where the man's cave comes in. They go off into their man's cave, or they go off and they go in silence and not speak about what the problems are. There is in men a huge social anxiety about showing up that they do have anxiety. So in social situations, they will feel more reserved and less likely to speak about their problem, and they'll have a higher risk of social anxieties being in fun socializing spaces. But work-related stress is very much more common in men, and again, very much not really spoken about. So the suicide rates in men globally, men account for 75% of all suicides worldwide. 75%. It's absolutely staggering. And it makes me really humble to read and to understand these figures. These figures are reported according to the WHO, the World Health Organization. And that's 3 to 4 times higher in men than in women, depending obviously on the region. So the silent struggles of men, the cultural, societal struggles of men, and the hidden epidemic of why men suffer this way, why they end up in suicide, and why they end up not speaking up and speaking about their challenges. It's because there is, according to studies, less than 40% of men with mental health issues seek professional help. 40%, that's almost half, don't seek professional help. They just cope, or maybe don't cope. They don't seek professional help, and they have a reluctance because they're not seeking professional help. There is a worsening of their symptoms, and there is also a much higher risk of self-harm and suicide. So the cultural factors in many societies, there is a stigma. There is a stigma of traditional societal norm of the masculine. Masculine men are discouraged from expressing their vulnerability. Let me say that again. Masculine men are discouraged from expressing their vulnerability. When I worked in corporate, I mainly hung out with people like barristers, solicitors, lawyers, accountants, and people of the professional type services, because they were the ones that were very into the corporate hospitality and organising events. And I spoke to a number of people today that were from the financial field. And in that space, when I said I was a stress expert, I was received with, oh, wow, you'll be busy, I could do with you. And that's because in those kinds of professions, there is very much a expression of being in control, being calm, being unemotional, being in a space where you have everything under control and in order. And these types of professions, especially if anybody is in a profession where they're highly mentally alert, and I'll say that again, when they're highly mentally alert. So probably not people like plumbers, builders, but definitely people that are doing numbers or very much analysing things. So insurance, stockbrokers, people that have a highly analytical mental agility of work. So logistics, for instance. And these types of professions especially tend to attract men. And in so doing, the men have to perform in terms of being able to produce the work from a highly mentally alert capacity. They go home, and what happens is that they take that highly alert mental agility and they don't switch out of that. They continue to stay in that. And because they're highly alert mentally, they don't experience the emotions. So if something happens, and in life things happen, we don't get through life without bereavements, without sickness, without relationship difficulties, without promotions, demotions, without financial difficulties, without stuff. Life is filled with challenges, and it's how we handle those challenges. And my invitation, and it is only that, it's an invitation, is that when there is a challenge, it is much, much better and much healthier for you to express the emotion that you feel, because it doesn't last for long. And when you express the emotion and allow the emotions to come up, it allows you to move through the challenge in a much easier way. And moving through that challenge moves you into a space of transformation. But when you're suppressing it and pushing it down and not addressing it from an emotional place, this is the key, from an emotional space of being. When it's only handled physically, logically, practically, there is a problem, because the emotions get suppressed, then there is more mental alertness. Now, anxiety resides in the mind. It's when you're thinking about future things that may not have happened. So if I don't do this, what about that? And if I do that, then I have to work out this. And if that doesn't happen, then I need to look at it another way. And everything is an analytical conversation in the mind. And it's in the mind with regard to future things that haven't happened. And if you stop and move out of the mind, and I'm going to share something with you by the end of this session so that it will be very easy for you to move out of the mind. And it's only an invitation, because it is about allowing yourself to feel in that space of being able to feel and express the emotions. It doesn't last as long, and it's very transformational. And in essence, when we don't express our emotions, this is where we get the anxiety, the depression, the stress. And this is where the conversation is an internal dialogue that creates the problems of the mind and creates the symptoms of depression and anxiety. And if you're not in the mind, there is no anxiety, and there is no depression, and there is no stress. Let me say that again. When you're not in the mind and you're experiencing from a sensory space, there is no anxiety, depression, or stress. There is inner peace and calm. And this is something that I teach, something that I'm very passionate about, and something that I feel is absolutely prevalent to managing the epidemic of mental health issues, especially in men. So men are discouraged from expressing their vulnerability. This is societal norms. So they're told, man up, get a grip, sort yourself out. And this societal cultural norm about the man is always in charge is detrimental to the man that is suffering the stress, anxiety, depression. And that's because he doesn't feel there is a way out. And when there is a lack of expression or allowing yourself to express because it's not deemed as appropriate, this is where mental health struggles preside. They have a traditional state of being present for everyone else and not for themselves. The expectation for the masculine energy, for the men, is to be tough. That's the gender role model, to be tough, and to be pressured almost to being the provider of the family, whether they are with their siblings or whether they are in a marriage or with a partner. So this pressure puts more pressure onto them if there is some challenges at work. And there is an emotional restraint of handling the problems without being emotional because of the stigma of vulnerability. Yes, in society, there is a stigma of men showing their vulnerability. And this is because they have a fear of being judged. They don't want to be seen as vulnerable. They don't want to be seen as emotional. And so this is the stereotypical norm. So this is why we have a mental health issue amongst men. This is why the stats are the way they are. This is why it's difficult for men to feel comfortable to talk about their mental health challenges. The stigma always, not always, but mainly in the majority of cases, prevents somebody from reaching out and seeking help, even if it's a friend. It's an invisible suffering for men. It goes unnoticed in many men because they're so busy in being busy, providing and doing all the things that the man should do, that generally it gets unnoticed. And this is why men are more affected by mental health challenges. There are differences in how men and women process emotions. The socialization of how men process emotions is that they don't talk about it, and women do generally. And this is something that I feel from a society that we have to allow an acceptance of men being able to talk about it. And that's because we don't see it as a norm and we don't think that it's right. Women generally talk about things that are not working, and this is where things change for them. Have you ever heard the expression, a problem shared is a problem halved? And today in the conference, I heard things like, when you talk about your problems, it's about getting it off your chest. And I thought that was a really interesting analogy, a wonderful metaphor, getting it off your chest. Sometimes we suffer and we don't say what we feel. We don't say what's wrong. And it starts to lay a heavy weight on the chest. And this is where grief resides. Grief is actually the saboteur of the heart chakra. And so when somebody expresses themselves and that expression that they feel, getting it off their chest means that the heart feels liberated, feels freer, and can breathe again. And this is where the lungs are situated in terms of the breath of life. This is where everything resides in terms of the emotional heart. And if we are suppressing and not expressing how we truly feel, the heart gets shut down. Now, you will be able to see when somebody has a shut down heart chakra, because we will say almost what we see. And the expression of that person looks like they've got the weight of the world on their shoulders. And it's not that they said anything to us, it's the way that we feel them. Because many times people think it's only about the words that we say. It's also about the gestures. And more importantly, it's also about sometimes the non-words that we say, the looks, the way that somebody doesn't respond and doesn't cope. And maybe they sigh. Have you heard anyone sighing a lot? When somebody's sighing a lot, this is unexpressed grief, unexpressed loss. And when somebody is struggling in their lives and is struggling with mental health issues, especially men, and they're not expressing their emotions and their feelings about what's going on for them, you might hear them sigh. Well, that's better. And it will come out as a, and then they will begin speaking. And it's almost like the sigh clears the words. Do you know anyone that's sighing? This is a cry for help. This is somebody that is suffering, that is not expressing how they're feeling. There is challenges in terms of connecting emotionally with family, with friends, and also with colleagues. It's okay when it's a formal dinner where there is no real social interaction and it's all business, because then you can be highly mentally alert and get away with it. But when it is a social occasion, it needs or requires you to be more socially interacting. And if you're not feeling it and feeling uncomfortable about socially interacting, this will show up. And sometimes this will show up where the person is looking detached. And it might show them being on their phone, checking messages when they're in a social environment, when they're not talking to others, but watching. Do you know, or do you watch rather than join in? Do you watch from a distance? Do you view? Do you see yourself as a viewer or a voyeur and not engage? This can come out very much in social activities, social occasions like weddings, parties, where the person that's going around with the camera taking the pictures, they're looking to be involved, but not involved. So they're taking pictures of what they view without feeling part of it all. I once had a conversation with one of my cousins who was very emphatic about taking pictures. And I remember saying, I'm not very good at taking pictures, and I have to really push myself and make an effort to think about it and to do it, because I'm usually too engaged in the event, in the experience, to consider or think about the pictures. And so I don't have a wide variety of pictures unless people take them. And then I force myself to take them when I think about it, because I have a promoter that tells me, if you don't take pictures, you're not showing yourself. It's social proof. You have to show you're not just talking about what you do, but you're actually doing what you do. And in today's world, it's all about social proof. I'm still working on that, and I'm not very good at it. And at the same time, this is one of the things that we can be in terms of being the man. We can be behind the camera, taking the pictures and not engaging. This is an excellent way of looking like you're engaged, but really not engaged. And when the person is taking the pictures, they're going around talking to everybody, but they're not talking. They're taking pictures. And because they're taking pictures, they look like they're part of it all and they're enjoying themselves, but really they're not. This is a strategy to be looking like they're involved, be looking like they're okay, and really they're not okay. So if you ever see a male photographer that's struggling, that's sighing, that's taking pictures but not really engaging, have a conversation with them. And something that came up in the conference today, and something that I truly endorse, is asking the words, are you okay? Coming from England and being very British, it's something that we say. It's a very British thing. Are you okay? And the phrase that comes back is, yeah, I'm okay, or I'm fine. And so this is like a normal response. It's not a thought about response. It's not really a real response. It's a quick response. It's to kind of, it's almost like saying hello and goodbye, or finishing off a letter saying yours faithfully, yours sincerely, or dear, the name. So this is the immediate, what I would call the knee-jerk reaction. Ask again, are you okay? Then you might go, yeah, I'm all right. Ask again, 3 times, are you okay? And you might find that you'll get a more truthful answer. Well, you know, this is going on and that's going on, and I'm not feeling very good about this. And it's because normally people are not expecting to hear that it's not okay. So it's very much a polite Are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. Is everything all right? Yes, everything's all right. And this is like saying hello and goodbye. And it reminds me of a song from the 80s, hello, say hello, wave goodbye. And it's very much a general, common way of being polite. Hello, goodbye, how are you? I'm okay. But this is where the person that's suffering with mental health issues doesn't feel safe to say, I'm not okay. So here's a tip for you. Reach out. And even if you're just on a car journey or just chatting on a call, ask them, are you okay? And if you do get the glib, yeah, I'm okay, or yeah, I'm fine, ask them twice and ask them the third time. And it will show that you care. And the person will feel heard, and give them the space to express, to feel, and to be totally okay to be vulnerable. It's a 3 times ask. It's amazing how it works. Do that and you will find you might have prevented somebody doing something that would harm them or ending their lives. It is challenging for men to express that emotional connection. So it is important to be the one, even if it's women, reaching out and saying, are you okay? The access to resources, generally there is a hesitation for men to engage in therapy and mental health services. Why is that? I've shared the stats with you. And it's evident that they feel reluctant. So let's look out for the signs and the symptoms. Men may show and display mental health struggles differently. They may have an increased irritability or an increased anger. They may withdraw from social activities, so they might not want to go to the party. I spoke to somebody today who was in finance, and we were talking about the corporate hospitality events, and he mentioned, yeah, you have to do it. You know, you have to just get on with it, but I don't like it. And this is because it's not the norm to be externally social in that type of profession, but it's how the profession works, and that's how they get their clients, through doing corporate hospitality. And so it's an introvert trying to be extrovert and doing it the way that is society expects you to do it, and finding it difficult. And this can create a challenge that is unspoken about and create a vulnerability that will create an avoidance. So risky behaviours, so driving cars fast, promiscuity. Also, if they feel the need to numb how they're experiencing life, to numb the experience of the mental health issues that they're experiencing, the depression, the anxiety. And numbing can come from substance abuse, recreational substances, alcohol abuse. It's okay to have 1 or 2 glasses or 3 glasses, but not on a regular basis, and certainly not in excess of that, because it will cause challenges. It might seem like it numbs the experience, but it doesn't make the problem go away. And also, it makes the experience that the person is experiencing of depression, anxiety, worse. Let's look at how we can break the stigma. Let's look at the importance of conversation. Encouraging people to have open conversations. Encourage men to have open conversations with you about their emotions. This seems simple, and yet it's highly effective. You will be amazed how many men will open up if they have the opportunity to, and if they feel comfortable because you've given them a pathway to speak. There's a role in workplaces, and certainly today at the conference, there was very much conversation from various companies that had mental health issue workplace programs for men in particular. And there was one particular man that had suffered with anxiety, depression, and he has set up a group now, and it is nationwide. And I was very heartened to hear about his story and about the things that he shared, and how just in doing something simple, he described the openness of the men's group. There are obviously no women, so I can't visit. So it's a man's group, and he explained that it's simply that you're invited without judgment, without feeling that you need to say anything or speak or even have a conversation about what the problem is, and only when you feel ready to say something. And he had some rules, and I'm not sure if I can remember all of them, so forgive me if this person is actually watching. And the rules that they had that I can remember was there was no talking about, there was no drugs, there was no talking about if they had a criminal record or they had served any time. There was no politics, no religion. And I think there was a couple of other things. Oh, yes, medication. He said because they weren't a medical group and they weren't professional to be able to say yes or no. And I thought that these were simple and yet incredibly ethical things for a men's group to have open conversation. And he described it as a circle of chairs where the men just sit and describe, or they talk about what's not working for them. And I just felt that, yes, I really feel that this seems so simple and yet highly effective. So who do you know that probably would find benefit of going to such a group? Who would you know that might benefit by expressing how they're feeling, giving them an open door, opening the door to allow them to express how they're truly feeling and thinking? It can start in the family, where the families notice, especially if there's withdrawal. And it also can start in the communities for support. But in the workplace, this is where I am seeing a lot of conversation. And the help begins with having an open conversation to make sure that it doesn't feel wrong. It's not wrong. It simply is. It's not right. It's not wrong. It simply is. I have a term of as-ising it. It is a problem, and we have to address the mental health challenges for men. We have too high a suicidal risk for men, and I was absolutely stunned by the figures that I read. So here's some positive role models, some positive figures, public figures that are speaking about mental health issues in men. And one of the people that I am very humbled to talk about is Stephen Fry. And even when I think about him, I'm humbled and emotional because his story was the first time that, and it was in 2016 when he talked about bipolar. And it wasn't even considered as a mental health issue. And I remember watching his documentary, and I felt extremely emotional about what he shared, how his life was, and how difficult his life was as a public figure suffering with bipolar. And even just bringing it up and saying it now, I'm surprised at how emotional I remember how I felt in watching that particular documentary. And if you want to look it up, it was a BBC documentary, and it was called The Secret Life of a Manic Depressive. Prince Harry has brought up mental health campaigning, and he's doing a lot of work following on from the work of his mother about mental health challenges in men particularly. Small steps is what we need to take, addressing the struggles and the challenges safely. Support and solutions, therapy and counselling, and addressing the common fears about seeking help. Let's make today a conversational day that it's okay to not be okay if you're a man, and it's okay to talk about being not okay if you're a man. For the women in your lives, feel comfortable to talk about what's not okay, because I shared today, we are all human beings. If you cut us, we all bleed. We all have bones. We have a skeletal. We all have a heart. And we all have the organs in our body. We all have eyes to see. And we all have 2 ears to hear. And we have a mouth to speak. And I say here now, it is important to feel safe that you can express when things are difficult. Because you're a human being, you're not a human doing. And I reach out and say to all of you, please feel comfortable in expressing when things are not okay. Reach out and build support systems around you, peer groups, mentorship, and get the family involved. And promoting mental health fitness by mindfulness practices, exercises, and journaling. Journaling is absolutely an amazing thing to do. I was very reluctant to do journaling when I first started doing my therapy training, but journaling became so easy because when I had written it all down, it seemed to feel different. It almost felt lighter. It was like, that's done. That's out there. Now I can get on. It's like emptying the mind onto paper and closing the book. And I highly recommend, if you've not got into journaling, to journal. Put your thoughts down. They can be private. Nobody has to see your thoughts. I've looked at some of my journals from way back when I was training, when I first began in 2000, 2001. And I'm surprised at some of the things that I journaled. And my journals were checked because they were concerned about the training that we were doing and the things that it was bringing up. And they wanted us to be safe. It's safe for you to talk. Let's create an environment where it's safe for men to talk about their mental health challenges, their anxieties, their depression. It's way okay to talk. If it's okay for women to talk, it's okay for men to talk. Reach out. Thank you for your attention and your interest. Please subscribe to USA Global TV and Radio. You can find all of our Talking Heads episodes under the playlist Talking Heads. And if you look at my name, Caroline Heward, you'll find all of my Talking Heads episodes under the various years. Please do reach out. And I say this genuinely. Though I have many male clients, please do reach out if I may be of service to you. You can reach me on No More Stress at live.co.uk or call on +44 if you're international. If you're local, 07523 120 189. And I look forward to helping you break through the challenges that you are experiencing.